All right, hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. So today we got another Mach-E video, and we're going to be talking about service on the Mach-E and just what my experience has been over owning this car for 18 months now. So let's get into it. Okay, so just to recap, this is my 2022 Mustang Mach-E. It's a standard range pack, all-wheel drive, premium trim, and I bought it in June of 2022, and it's now end of December here 2023 that I'm filming this, so it's been a solid 18 months. I'm almost at 13,000 miles, about 100 miles shy or so of that. Okay, so if you open up the owner's manual, it's really a pretty short list. Every 12 months or 10,000 miles, rotate your tires, check for tread wear, make sure you got enough tread left. Really just multi-point inspection, which is going to include, making sure you don't have any issues with your brakes, brake pads, and rotors. And that's really it for scheduled regular maintenance. And then if you look further down over a longer period of time, they recommend every 3 years to change your brake fluid. And then every 20,000 miles, replace the cabin air filter. That's going to be your climate air filter inside the car. There's no engine air filter since this is a electric motor. Changing the transmission fluid, it says every 10 years or 150,000 miles, and then at every 200,000 miles to change the coolant. The coolant is a big deal in the EVs because that's the coolant that's going to be running through the battery pack and the electric motors, just to make sure they're at the right temperature, really cooling that whole system in the heat in the summertime, but then also warming the battery in the wintertime, so you can get some better charging speeds, better range, that kind of thing. So that's really it for scheduled and preventative maintenance. And then probably the last thing, if you just look at kind of the whole list, is make sure everything is working, lights are working properly. You're going to need to top off your windshield washer fluid, of course, and every 6 months, check your 12-volt battery. This does have a standard 12-volt car battery, but in here, that's what all the other 12-volt standard car system components are running off of, kind of like a standard combustion car. Okay, so going through the timeline, I bought the car in June of 2022. In July of 2022, so just about a month after I bought the car, I got this important safety recall notice in the mail about the 22S41 contactor weld issue. If you're not familiar with this issue, there's contactors that connect the high voltage battery to the drivetrain and other components like charging the 12-volt battery, that kind of thing. And so these contactors can either weld open, where current doesn't flow at all, or weld closed, where it can't disconnect from the high voltage battery. And the main concern is if they weld open, that will cause the electric motors to immediately lose power, and you will no longer be able to accelerate or move at all. So you'll coast to a stop. Now the good news is the 12-volt battery still operates a lot of the other driving components on the car, such as your brakes, power steering, headlights, door locks, all that kind of stuff. It'll obviously stop being charged, but you'll have plenty to be able to pull over and that kind of thing. This was a pretty big recall. It affected pretty much every Mach-E that had been built up to that point. And so Ford chose at the time to do this recall via a software update where they would monitor the contactor temperature and then adjust power, really reduce power if you had done a lot of repeated what they call wide open pedal acceleration events or DC fast charging. So that software update was supposed to prevent that from happening, reducing power in those situations if that happened. Fast forward to 2023, just on this issue, Ford has actually changed this to a hardware recall where they're actually going to replace the high voltage junction box component on some of the Mach-Es, not all of them. I looked up my VIN. My Mach-E is not affected. It appears the GT model, which has the large motor in both the front and the rear, that's going to use and draw a lot of current during acceleration. Those will be replaced, and also some extended range Mach-Es are affected as well. This is the standard range, So that smaller battery, it's not able to run as much current through the contactors. It is the all-wheel drive though, so it does have 2 motors, but the front motor here is not nearly as big as the one on the GT. So just less power going through the system overall. Okay, so next trip, actually went to a Ford dealer this time. This would have been the first time since I bought the car. This was at the end of July, so still fairly recently after I bought the car. And my main concern at the time was this kind of odd smell that I was getting. It smelled like fish. It smelled like kind of a moldy, fishy smell, but you could only smell it outside the car when the car had been running for a while, and this was summertime. And we had, my family, we had taken a road trip, done like 1 DC fast charging, and just kind of smelled this fishy smell outside. Inside the car, again, it was perfectly fine. It was outside. And I was like, huh, is there something leaking? You know, what's going on there? That seems kind of strange. And then, you know, most cars, if you run the air conditioning and park them for a while, you'll eventually see some, you know, drips of water drip on the ground from the condensation. Well, the Mach-E should do the same thing. It has an AC compressor as well. I wanted that looked at because I ran the car for a while. I never saw any drops of water on the ground. And so I was like, that's kind of weird. Is like the condensation building up underneath the Mach-E somewhere. So I took it into the dealer and they could not find anything. There's a bottom cover under there, like fabric cover to help with sound deadening and that kind of thing. They took that off. They saw the condensation dripping fine, put it back on, couldn't find any issues, submitted something to Ford is what they said, but they never found anything. I made a forum post about this. I got some pretty funny replies. At the time it wasn't very funny because I was like, this seems like a real issue because there's coolant hoses that run through the high voltage battery to keep it cool or warm in the winter. And so it's like, man, if there's something leaking there, this is not good. The posts are pretty funny now, but once I got the car back, I ran it in the garage with the AC blasting for like half an hour. I came back and there was a puddle of water underneath it. I'm like, oh, thank goodness. So either one of 2 things probably happened. Either something was actually clogged and they did unclog it by taking that cover off, or it's just, I don't know, new car and those components getting heated and cooled several times. Maybe there's something burning off there on the outside. I don't exactly know. And that really hasn't been an issue since. So I took it in for the AC thing, and then because they had the car and this software recall on the high voltage battery contactors was open, they did the 22S41 recall there. I had not gotten the software update over the air at home or when I'm driving around. I never got that up until that point. And so they did the update there at the Ford dealer. They also just did a general inspection. Unfortunately, they did have the car for a long time. They had the car for over 2 weeks. I'm not going to totally fault them for that. Ford dealers have just been really backed up from all the pandemic stuff, a lot of recalls going on. So they were just trying to get to it when they could, but it was unfortunate to have the car gone for that long. But they didn't charge me for anything here, so $0. AC's good, smell's gone, and I got the software update. Okay, so now fast forward to November of 2022. So some time went by. I got this notice in the mail, important safety recall reminder about 22S41. So this has been about 4 months, maybe 3.5 months since I had that recall done at the Ford dealer. And I was like, oh no, did I never actually get that software update? Because you can't really tell in the car. Some of those modules they update and it's not like a full system update, so the car doesn't say, oh, you have version 4 now with these changes. It could be some module that they updated and I don't have visibility to that. So I made some phone calls about that, and turns out it looks like it was just a paper logging issue. Ford called the Ford dealer I went to, and this case was still open on this car. They had never finished submitting the paperwork, and so in Ford's system it looked like I had never gotten this recall. But that's so weird to me, because it's weird and it's not weird. It's weird because it's supposed to be a software update, so why can't they just keep a log of all the cars that have gotten this some way or another and not sent this notice again? But at the same time, it is a legacy automaker. This is really their first era of cars, the F-150 Lightning and the Mach-E, being over-the-air software updatable. And so you're kind of dealing with this paper system of doing recalls, and you're adding a software component into it, and you still kind of need this paper tracking system because sometimes there are hardware components on here that do have a recall. So now we're in December of 2022, and this update is what they call a customer satisfaction program update. So if you look up recalls on Ford's vehicles, they have, safety, big deal type recalls, stuff that's still important and they want to fix. They know people are going to complain about it, but it's not really a safety level issue. Then it's not really a full recall. They just bucket them into this customer satisfaction program thing. So this one was 22B28, and specifically this was ensuring the vehicle has the ideal optimal output from its heating system. It says, we have developed a software update to improve the heating capability, defrost, and defog performance when exterior temperatures are at or below minus 15 C or 5 degrees Fahrenheit. So I did eventually receive this update over the air. I didn't need to take any action. Still kind of weird getting a paper thing in the mail for something that's going to come in a software update, but especially for this one, since it wasn't a big safety issue. But that ended up going through fine. I didn't do any detailed testing before and after I got this update, so I can't really tell you if it made any difference. Okay, so now a much larger period of time passed. So we went from the last notice, December 22, and now we're all the way to August of 2023, which is great. That's how it should be. I think ideally this would have been the first piece of paperwork I ever had for this car other than buying it, because this is the scheduled 10,000 mile service update. And they did a tire rotation, they did the multi-point inspection, and they washed the car. The amount was $34.14, but when I bought the Mach-E, I got Ford Pass reward points, like 22,000 or something like that, and that equates to like 150 to 180 US dollars. So I was actually able to apply some of those points towards the tire rotation in this inspection service, and didn't have to pay anything out of pocket, and I still have lots of points left over. One other note on that is I waited for the car. So there's the Ford Pass app when you have one of these Ford connected vehicles. And so once I got to about 9,500 miles, I got a notification saying, hey, you should schedule service for your 10,000 mile service. And I was able to book all that through the app. And by the time there was appointments opening, it was around the time I hit 10,000 miles. The last notice I have here, this one I got fairly recently. So this was in October of 2023. And this is another customer satisfaction program one, 23B50. And this is specifically about the battery charger control model, BCCM, and that the software installed on my vehicle does not have a transfer function that predicts the charging port pin/terminal temperature. And so the concern here is that the charge cord may become stuck in your vehicle. You may also experience a burning smell or melting of the charge port pins. So that's not good. That has not happened to me. Like I mentioned, I have DC fast charged this car a number of times. I don't do it on a regular basis. So as far as I know, I have not gotten this update yet. We're in end of December 2023. So we're about 2-ish months here since I got this notice. I'm not overly concerned since I don't DC fast charge on a regular basis. All right, so that's all the service and recalls and everything. So hopefully that you found that helpful. But really, general thoughts on the maintenance is it's been really good. Most people, if a gas car is doing well, they'll just say, yeah, all I have to do is change the oil and put gas in it. I think for an EV, all I have to do is charge it up and put washer fluid in it. I think that's true for this car most of the time. The software updates are obviously important. You want to make sure you're getting those for a lot of these recalls or customer satisfaction, so I'll lump that in there as well. But only have had 2 trips to the dealer. I've only spent $34, and really that was covered by the Ford Pass points, so call that $0. Like I mentioned, I'm going to be doing an 18-month update on the car, you know, kind of going over everything from charging, walking around the car, showing you some of the features I like and don't like. Stay tuned for that video. Subscribe if you want to come back for that. And thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you next video. Bye.